Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. Appreciate you joining me here once again for another week. I'm back for another solo episode. So, a couple of interviews have been dropped over the last few weeks. We have a couple more to come. The tempo and the timing that I'm trying to do for these interviews is obviously once a week. I publish this on a Saturday morning. That's Australian time. So, if you're somewhere else in the world, it will be at whatever time that equates to in your particular time zone. But it is generally I'm running two interviews and then one solo podcast. And on the solo podcast, it's really just about similar format to what I've done in the past, where I'm just picking a topic and riffing on it for about 15 to 20 minutes. Or I'm going through a particular question that I've been sent, which is what I'm going to do today. And I've been asked about getting your kids to train with you. Now I've spoke about it before. My son particularly, he loves coming out to the garage when I'm training. I'm lucky enough that I have the garage set up at home where I have pretty much a full gym setup. I obviously still run some one-on-one personal training sessions there with some local people that come in couple of times a week, as well as I do assessments for my remote programs and things like that for those that can come in and see me in person out of here. So I have a business outlet to do that. A lot of people that I coach have a home gym set up as well, because from a time point of view, I've spoken about the benefits of that on the podcast previously, but from a time and convenience point of view, it's actually easier for them to invest the money in a setup at home. It doesn't have to be complex. If you want some help kind of and guidance around what I think you should do, if you want to set something up at home because getting to a gym is hard for you, then please reach out. You can send me a message on the socials. You can also book in a time. There's a link in the show notes where you can book in a time to have a free 30-minute chat with me, and we can run through that. No sales pitch. It's just more to try and help you put in something that's going to be sustainable for you and your lifestyle. But having a home gym set up at home for me, has been great. Obviously, it is my profession and has been for the last 15 years, coaching people, health and wellness, trying to work through that with people. So, it's easy enough for me to sit here on my high horse and kind of say, oh, you should prioritize it and this and that. But I also get everything else that goes into it as well too, from a parent point of view. Like, there are a lot of other commitments that need to take priority over your training time. And there are some people that I work with that, they've got limited time. Like, I've got one gentleman I work with. We literally do 15-minute sessions for like 4 or 5 times a week. That's the goal. I've got other clients who we do like 30-minute sessions a couple of times a week. Like, everyone's different. And that's one of the things with the program and kind of what inspired the Unstoppable Dad Project. Prioritizing your physical health is important, but when we have cookie cutter programs that are an hour to 90 minutes, as despite them potentially being great programs, they're not going to fit for everybody. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to need something that's a little outside of the box. And really, that's what I specialize in. But back to the topic for today, having your kids train with you. I think depending on how old your kids are, this answer is going to change. And for me, having the home gym set up is definitely helpful from the point of view of the kids training. My kids are 9 and 5. So from the point of view of them training with me, it's more just from an enjoyment point of view. And regardless of what age your kids are, I think that's got to be the number one thing. You have to make it enjoyable for them. If you don't make it enjoyable, they're not going to want to do it, which is why probably if you're looking to get your kids more physically active, and you're struggling to do that, playing sports and things like that, for me, is probably the best first port of call, because they can get around, especially like team sports or things like that. Maybe they want to do it with their friends. It's more of an enjoyable activity for them. Like, for the age that my kids are, whatever they do should be enjoyable. But from the point of view of, let's say you want to try and get them to do more physical activity with you, they have to see you do it firstly, and they have to see you enjoying it. Because if they don't see, if they see you doing it and it's always seeming like a chore to you. It's feeling like it's forced and you're really like, you hate doing it. And especially if like the way you describe it is like it's this real chore, it's not enjoyable, they're not going to want to do it, right? Like it's just not going to happen because they see mum or dad doing this thing despite what you say and how the benefit, like, you're not going to be able to explain to a kid the benefits of it and it sink in if what they're seeing is different to what they're hearing. There's going to be a disconnect there and a little bit of confusion within their brain about like, hey, dad's telling me that this is such a great thing for him, but every time I see him do it, he's constantly whinging about it or griping about it, or, it doesn't seem like it's enjoyable. Like, what's going on there? And that's going to probably cause them to want to shy away from it. So you've got to be seen to doing it and you've got to be seen to enjoying it. And that's the thing, like with my son, obviously it's, I believe there's a little bit of, he's trying to emulate me because I'm the male of the house. He's a male. There's like a gender thing there that's where he's drawn to that, whereas my daughter's not so drawn to it. She'd prefer to come out here in the garage. We've got some gymnastics mats and do like tumbling and cartwheels and practice that type of thing. And that's cool too. Like, I'm not going to force her to pick up a weight and try and move a weight around or teach her to squat. Like, she's 9 years old. We can go through that when she gets a little bit older. Like, I want her, when it comes to physical activity and physically expressing herself, to be able to enjoy whatever it is that she does. Like, she's done calisthenics, she's done gymnastics, like she's done that stuff and she's enjoyed it. And then when the enjoyment's no longer there, we're looking to do something else. But you have to make sure it's enjoyable for them, because if it's not, they're not going to want to do it. And then later on in life, if they've been forced to do something at an early age, I believe that later on in life, that can cause more issues than it's worth forcing them to do it at a younger age. As in, they're not going to want to do it later on. They're going to basically, almost, a lot of kids may even go full 180 and go the opposite direction to something that is potentially seen as a healthy behavior, just because you have tried to force it on them at a younger age. So you need to make it enjoyable and you need to make sure that you don't force it, because by kind of ticking those two boxes, they're going to they're going to be more willing to follow through with it and enjoy it. It's like getting my son to do jiu-jitsu. My daughter has never been interested in doing jiu-jitsu at all, and that's perfectly fine. I do believe that there's going to be some benefit for her doing it later on in life, but she's not at an age right now where we can have a conversation about why it is potentially important for her to do this, or to do it. Like, so I'm not forcing it, because if I force her to do it right now, when she gets old enough to potentially see some more benefit out of it, she won't want to do it because it had been forced upon her at a younger age. And it's the same with my son. My son wants to do it, like he loves doing it. And that's the thing. When he first started, he was very hit and miss with doing it. He'd sit out, and the guys that coach him are amazing, like very understanding. He loves his coaches that are there. They'll go, he sat out. There'd be some weeks he didn't want to do it. There'd be some weeks he did. We never forced it. The only rule we had with it, as he was working through it, was like, if we were there, you at least went and did the class. Like, if you woke up in the morning and you didn't feel like doing it, that's fine. Stay home, dude. That's no problems at all. And look, there are some people that are going to look at that and go, oh no, like he's committed to doing it and he should do it. Understand that side of things, but let's look at it from this point of view. And this is where I feel, and these are just my personal opinions, having done sport my whole life and now looking at how I'm parenting my kids. Jiu-jitsu, and also having a pretty good inherent knowledge of what jiu-jitsu is. Jiu-jitsu for me is a little bit more of a life skill. It is something that you can do over a lifespan. It is not like a seasonal sport like soccer or football. So because it's a life skill, and especially because my son is only 5, we got to remember that. Like, we've got to age needs to be considered when we're talking about getting kids active, getting kids training. He's only 5. And this is a life skill. And what they're doing in their classes, like, it's fun. They're doing obstacle courses. Sure, they're doing a little bit of jujitsu, but they're not old enough to kind of comprehend exactly what's going on. It's about getting him out, getting him active. But it's something that I want him later on when he gets into his teenage years and look, when he becomes a young man, I think there's going to be more value for him doing it then. And then the conversation with him when he gets a little bit older can be more around, hey, like, today's maybe one of those days where we've just got to go and do it anyway, even though we don't feel like it. 5, not the case, because if I force him to do it when he's 5, I would say with a fair bit of surety, then when it actually becomes more valuable to him as a life skill, he is learning more self-defense stuff. He is actually doing something that may be applicable should he need to use it in a real life situation. And he's able to start to learn some life skills around resilience, around like grit and determination. He's not going to want to do it because he's been forced to do it at a younger age. And that's the same thing with my daughter. And it's the same thing with training, like getting your kids to train with you. Like, this is something that for them, if you do it the right way, it can become a life skill for them, and it can be something that they can continue to do and enjoy as they get older. It can be a massive source of enjoyment for them, providing we don't force it upon them too early. And back to what I was talking about, like with jiu-jitsu, and that's why I don't force him to do it, because I think that there's a longer game that we're playing here rather than the short-term game. Now, if we were doing a seasonal sport, and this is one of the rules that we've kind of got with the kids when it comes to sport, if you're doing a seasonal sport, you are committed for either the year or the season, whatever that might be for that sport that you're doing. And then from there, it is a different story when we're talking about going to training. You go to training once a week. If you're doing a team sport, you have other teammates that you are potentially letting, like, this is a different lesson that we're trying to teach them for that you are letting down by not going to training. Yes, there's going to be times where you're sick. There's going to be times where maybe other things need to take priority, but that needs to be the exception, not the rule. And that's where the difference is between something like jiu-jitsu that is it is a year-round thing. It is constantly going. It is not like we're doing 6 to 9 months of this and then we're getting 3 months off. So there are different sets of lessons based off the sport or the activity that you're doing. And again, just to reiterate on that, like, for me, it really matters where their age at. And it may not be like their chronological age. It may be like their mental age. Some kids are mentally a bit older than other kids, and that's, so knowing your own children, knowing where they're at from that point of view is an important thing as well too. But the thing with training, and if we're just talking about like physical training, I think one of the biggest things is they have to see you doing it and they have to see you enjoying it. Because if they don't, it's not going to be appealing to them. It could be something that becomes appealing to them because their friends are doing it as they get older, and that's perfectly cool as well too. But for me, and this is the thing, they're probably never going to listen to their parents when they get to the teenage years, but kind of thinking about this is just a thought that's popped into my mind. I'd like them to be exposed to it in a way where it's going to be sensible and they're able to learn how to do it properly. So when it gets to the point that maybe their friends are wanting to start to train and lift weights and, they want to get completely jacked and, ripped and, or they want to get stronger for whatever. If I've exhibited a track record for them where they've seen me training, maybe they've played around with it. Like my son, I don't get him. I don't tell him what to do when he comes out to train. He'll come out and he'll kind of just mirror what I do. I don't want him to, because I think once you start adding too many instructions for younger kids, it starts to lose its enjoyment. Like too many rules can lead to them not doing it. Obviously, we talk about safety and when he's picking up weights and things like that, that's a different conversation. But from the point of view of like the X's and O's of it, where we're doing 3 sets of 10 squats or anything like that, he's just kind of mirroring me, or he's doing his own thing. Like he'll pick up his little kettlebell and move it out, or he's got some little weights over there. He'll pick them out. He'll jump on the bench in between my sets. Like we talk about, I guess, gym etiquette, waiting for somebody to finish, waiting for me to finish, making sure we're at a safe distance to each other, all that stuff. But I'm not telling him to do 3 sets of 10 squats or anything like that. He's just coming out and doing his own thing because he enjoys it. But he also sees me enjoying it too, right? So he's emulating it. So my hope is that when he gets older and his friends want to start to do it, that he'll feel comfortable coming to me and say, hey, Dad, can me and my friends come and train in the gym that we've got set up at home? And it's like, yeah. But when he gets to his teenage years, it's like, hey, can I just give you a little bit of direction around what I think you should be doing? And it's not going to really, it might be, maybe it can be a program depending on where they're at, and they'll follow it. But more what I'm trying to do is just give them some guidelines, because I look back on, when I started training, and most people, when they start training, like they do some bonehead shit from the point of view of training, but because you're young, you can bounce back from it. When you get older, you get into your 40s, 50s, you have to be a little bit more measured about it. But when you're in your late teens, early 20s, hey man, have at it. Like you can do some pretty dumb shit from a training point of view, and you're probably going to adapt to it because, from a male point of view, you're hooked up on testosterone, and you're growing, and your body's just made of rubber, for lack of a better term, at that point. So you can do whatever you please. But I think in order for the kids to love it and get to a point where they want to do it, you have to do it. And not only that, when they get to that later age, what my kids will have seen, and again, I get that it's easy for me to sit here in my ivory tower and kind of go, this is what I would do. But I've had the advantage of coaching people and training people for well before I had kids. I've had the advantage of training since I was in my teenage years, albeit, like I said, it was like some pretty dumb shit looking back on it now. But, I've had that exposure over decades. So it's easy for me to say this. But if you're thinking about that now and your kids are younger, don't wait to get into it, because they will, I think for me, the fact that they'll have seen me doing it all the way through their life, when they get to that age and they do want to do something, they're hopefully going to be more inclined to come to me, because firstly, they know that they've seen me doing it their whole life. It's not just something that I've just started, because that may not inspire a bunch of confidence in them. If Dad's just starting and I'm just starting, he probably knows just as much as me. Whereas it's like, and again, I'm their parent. They're going to get to their teenage years. I understand and appreciate they're not going to want to listen to a whole lot of what I got to say. But, I think having that track record of them seeing that over their life and being a part of it and just being ingrained in what we do, they'll be more ready to take that advice when it gets to them being in, and it means more to them, or it means more to their long-term development. But to kind of tie it all up, how do you get your kids to train with you? I think having a home gym that's the first part, because then you don't have to take them anywhere. If you're having to take them to the gym with you, there's a whole other, just depending on the gym, but let's say you have to take them to like a commercial gym, there's a whole minefield of stuff that you have to worry about there, whether they let kids at whatever age in there, so on and so forth. So there's that logistically, there's that issue. So having it at home not only can make it easier on you, it can make it easier on them to observe what you're doing. So that for me is a big piece to the puzzle, but it's not the most important piece. The most important piece, I think, is whatever you do, you have to make it enjoyable for them. You can't have it. You can't have so many rules and have it so stringent that they're kind of frozen or paralyzed about what they can and can't do. They need to be able to enjoy it. You need to make it simple, and you need not to force it. There is a whole line of thinking where, we've got to push ourselves through and we've got to do hard things. And yep, at different times, I mean, I did a solo episode a couple of weeks ago talking about inspiring confidence into our kids. And I spoke then about building resilience and making them do hard things and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to something that may be considered a life skill, teaching them how to train properly, I think is a life skill, because it's something that they can continue to do for the rest of their life. It's the same with like something as a martial art. It's something that they may need at any point through their life. And I think if you force them to do it at a young age when they don't have the comprehension skills to understand why it's important to push through, can turn them off for the rest of their life. So don't force it. Make it simple, make it enjoyable. And most importantly, they have to see you doing it and you enjoying it. Because if they don't observe that, I think you're fighting a losing battle. And it comes back to the whole do as I say, not as I do. And that, for me, from what I've seen over the last almost 9 years now of being a parent, is just it's not an effective parenting strategy, and it can lead to a whole bunch of trouble. So that's it. That's some of the steps, some of the things I would look at if you want to get your kids training with you. If you need help directly with your particular set of circumstances, obviously the podcast, the videos that I put up are all very broad and general. There's not any real specific advice. So if you want some help, please reach out. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, there is a link in the show notes where you can book in a free 30-minute call. We can talk about all things training, gym setup, getting kids involved, what you should and shouldn't do from that point of view, and draw on my over 15 years of knowledge helping not only adults reach their health and fitness goals, but then teaching kids as well too. So thanks very much for your time. I appreciate you joining me. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I tend to ramble on these solo episodes, but we'll be back next week with another interview, which I'm excited for. I'm excited to share with you, and I hope that you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.